All right, I'm Frank Jones. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is January 18th of 2023. I belong to the Principals Group of Raleigh. We meet Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 o'clock right at Layton Memorial Methodist Church, right off South Wilmington Street. Tuesdays is a discussion meeting and Thursdays is a closed speaker meeting. I'm sponsored. I have the privilege of sponsoring other men by working the 12 steps. I believe I've got my preliminaries out of the way. If not, Daniel's sponsor will let me know. So I'm privileged to be here tonight. 3 years ago, my life was in a totally different way. The man up here at this podium today is not the boy that walked into these rooms in 2023. And that's all by way of surrendering and really, truly giving my life to this program. As Daniel said, I'm fully in on this thing. I learned early on that the men that I decided to follow sat fully down at these seats and did everything that was asked of them. So when someone asked me to speak, and I'll let y'all know I wasn't asked to come anywhere back in the day. There was no recommending Frank to do anything unless you were the sheriff. They were always looking for me. But, I have a wonderful full life. I'm a communications lineman, something that I dreamed about doing. I'm a third-generation communications lineman. And I go back to say that all comes from working these 12 steps and fully sitting down. I'll come out of this suit in a minute. I promised it fit 8 months ago when I bought it. I've grown a little bit since then. But, so I grew up in Franklin County, North Carolina. Oh, and I'll say what I'm here to do tonight, I can't forget this, is in a general way tell you what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like today. And I will give y'all a disclaimer. I'm not your couple Bud Light and that's it kind of alcoholic. I threw my life away chasing that bottle. I'm a bottom of the barrel, give up everything, and truly let the liquor drive my life into a dark place. And I'm going to try my best to paint that and then paint what this program's done for me now. So I grew up in Franklin County, North Carolina. If y'all don't know where that is, I don't blame you. It's a small little place. We just got a Taco Bell and a Food Line about 5 years ago. We're on the map now. But I grew up with both my mother and my father. I was the first son and praised. I was the first grandkid in the whole family. I'm named after my grandfather. Very proud of that. And I had two loving parents. My parents had me real young, early 20s. And then right after they had me, I almost have an Irish twin. We were about a month off on that. But they made no haste making my younger brother. And then a couple years down the road, my youngest brother. So there's 3 of us, and I'm the oldest. My father was a communications lineman. As I said, her grandfather, communication lineman. Mother was a stay-at-home mom most of my life. And I grew up, parents coached t-ball, basketball, president of the rec league. I mean, from the outside looking in, like we were the Meet the Joneses kind of family, And they truly did their best. I never had a birthday that wasn't full. I never had a Christmas that the living room had walking room. I was very well taken care of. And in my earliest memories, Daddy always had a beer. My dad worked as hard as he could, worked his tail off for us. And as soon as he got home, the first thing he did before his boots came off was he went to that fridge and grabbed a Natural Light. And I didn't think nothing of it, and didn't think nothing of it till I was about 6 months here, in AA, and realized, like, whoa. That was, I can remember being a child, and I couldn't wait to grow up, not to have a family or to get my first truck or do this. I wanted to drink a beer with my dad. Like, that was my goal in life, is once I hit that point, I knew that was my obtainable of manhood. I'm making up words up here, excuse me. But that's that Franklin County education. And as I went through life, my dad, and I'll call him my uncle, he was my daddy's best friend. Like, these are two men that in their professions were powerhouses, very well respected men. And no matter what cookout or birthday party, family get together, funeral, I mean, whatever the occasion, everyone was getting drunk. And it wasn't a violent kind of drunk. It was a fun, good time. My idea of a good time before I could ever take a drink involved alcohol. And my alcoholism was it was deep in me way before I ever took my first drink. Now, mind you that my parents coached the teams that I played on. I didn't feel a part of the team. I was leaving the field with the coach, and I didn't feel a part of that team. I'd go to school. Everyone wanted to hang out with me. I wasn't a part of that crowd. In my mind, in reality I was, but I removed myself from that. I could not allow myself to feel a part of anything. From my earliest memories, I removed myself from the group. I mean, and lying. Lying is like salt and pepper to me. I love it. It's probably one of the hardest defects I had to get rid of. Trying to get rid of. See, I just lied right there. It was the first one, and my family always jokes with me to this day about it. I'm in third grade, going into fourth. Well, leaving third grade, going into fourth. And we come back from summer break, and kids had gone to Carowinds and Disneyland. Now, my dad's a blue-collar worker. We might have went to Kerr Lake. But it wasn't nothing exciting like the other kids had done. And I went and I wrote a whole report about how we went on a safari in Africa. And my teacher just thought, and I mean, I'm eating it up. I've got the whole class believing. They want my parents to bring pictures and talk to us about it. We're in a little town in north of Wake County. No one's even seen Africa. So everyone's all about it. They're calling my mom and my dad. And, what is he talking about? We ain't even left the county. You know? And so that was the first time. I didn't get in trouble over it. It was funny. But, it was the first time that I can remember, feeling so disassociated from the crowd. I had to lie, to bring myself, to make myself feel worthy. I got to watch. I'll get off track quick, y'all. But, and as time went on, this did not get better. One of my first times in fear, Steve Mitchell says something, and you can't break his anonymity because everyone, whether you're in Alcoholics Anonymous or not, knows that Steve Mitchell's in AA. But Steve Mitchell says that if he could replace the word alcoholism with one thing, it'd be fear. And I love that because that's what drove my alcoholism throughout my whole life, fear. And I had just gotten to where I was in Kid Pitch. And it was my first year. We went to one of them bougie Wake County teams where they're leagues off season, playing in the backyard. We didn't do that. So this kid's throwing probably a 50, 60. It won't that fast in my mind. It was though. He's slinging them down, and he caught me right in my rib cage, and that was the end of my baseball career. I'm talking about it stopped right there when it hit me. And everyone's clapping, yeah, he's going to the base. As soon as I got off and I rounded that last base and I went back to the bench, I made a decision right there. I'll never get up on that plate again. I refused to face fear, refused it. And what that led me to do was fear conquered me in that moment in my preteen years. And Dad's coaching all-star teams and stuff like that. I'm his oldest son. I'm tearing his name. And I'm hiding in the porta potty right before it's my turn to bat. So, my team's getting automatic outs and stuff like that. What that led to was me getting totally made fun of at school. Very embarrassing, and it ate me up. So I have now, before I'd ever hit 12 years old, I've removed myself from any relationships. I've not faced any fears. I'm not with y'all. I'm not one of y'all. I'm alone, in my mind. And then my parents, out of nowhere one day, I come home from middle school, Dad's sitting in a chair, they're getting a divorce. Totally out of left field for us. And that shattered my security. All these major things in my life so early in my life. Now, they're not catastrophic. This happens every day. But for me, this was horrendous. And it just shattered, it shattered my reality. I had no ambitions. I think back at this point in my life, I had no dreams, ambitions, or anything like that. I just wanted to escape the reality I was in. And Mom, I truly believe in the traditions. I'll stay with the singleness of purpose. My mom went an alternate route. My father met a woman that he was coaching one of her sons on the baseball team. They moved in, like your small town Jerry Springer episode. It was horrible to be a part of. And my mom got custody of us, and there was no rules. Maya went to school 3 or 4 times a week. Truancy was in and out of the house. My mom was a substitute teacher. She let someone move in, and I'm all over the place, but I'm going to paint a picture with this, I promise. But my mom let some kids that were about to go to college move in, and they went to a house party one night, and at 12 years old, I'd had my first real drunk. And I'd have told you when I was 13 that I'd had about 20 Smirnoff Ices, and people were chanting my name, and I was closer in the room. I had about 5, maybe, and I got alcohol poisoning and passed out in the bathtub. But before I got alcohol poisoning, in that little blip of my life I can remember, all my stress, my fear, my anxiety, my not being one of you went away. I was funny, I was cool, I was a part of, I had courage. Like for the first time in my life, I was one with the world. That's the only way I know how to explain it. And most people would wake up from that traumatic experience, and it went to the point of having my stomach pumped, but I was really sick, threw up a lot. And a normal person would be like, whoa, that wasn't fun. At that moment, I'd made a decision in my life that that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. Whatever that feeling was, that's going to be my profession. Like that's how I treated it, and I chased that. And I chased that for the next 14 years. There's really not a lot to sum up between them teenage years. That is truly all that I did. I would hop from one parent's house to the other. Mom would get kicked out of one place. We'd go stay with Dad. Dad would lose custody over something. We'd go back to Mom. There was no stability in my early years at all. And I was okay with that. I almost became institutionalized to that. It was normal, which did not help me later on in life. Fast forward around the age of 15, I'm fully reliant. I'd moved in with my grandmother. My grandmother allows me to drink however I want. She's supplying my habit. And I'm fully reliant on alcohol. I'm drinking when I wake up. I'm drinking to go to bed. I'm drinking to have fun. I'm even now, at such a young age, planning events. Like I'm planning how I'm going to stay drunk or get drunk enough to enjoy this family get-together that some people can't know that I'm drinking at. Like this, it was this whole thing that I'd got way too good at way too early. And around that same time, I'd met a girl that was, the only way I know how to explain it is I allowed her to love me so I didn't have to love myself. And I that was like my hostage. Like we grabbed onto each other. And it was a very toxic relationship. And that just went on. I'm uneducated at this point in my life. I'll fast forward to the age of about 19, 19 and a half, 20. No work experience. Maybe had done like an odd roofing job with a sketchy contractor, but no real work experience, no real life experience, no education. I've fully devoted my life to escaping reality through my alcoholism. Dad has kind of washed his hands with me. I'm a grown man now. There was many attempts to try and help me get better, but I was not. I wasn't willing to do any of it. I didn't want to hear it. And I was okay with the mess just because how that childhood looked. And my best thinking and not being responsible, I got the news that I was about to bring a child into this world. And again, I'm about 20 years old, uneducated. I decided my best thought was, well, I better get an education. And I go and get a GED. And got my GED, super proud of it, got my license around the same time. My grandfather sees, okay, Frank's trying to get his life back together. He steps in and helps me get a job at a Miller Lite distribution plant in Wake County. So I don't know if y'all, you probably connect the dots here. A Miller Lite distribution company is not a place where an alcoholic of my kind needs to work. So, of course, pretty quick, I'm a pretty charismatic dude when I'm drunk back then. And I meet the people I need to meet to, to live the lifestyle I want to live. Because, of course, I don't have any money. Like, I can't drink how I really want. I'm drinking, like, bottom shelf aristocrat. You could burp and start a fire. Like, not the good stuff. And so I meet these guys, and they start telling me, in the beer industry, if a case is damaged, even if one beer is broken in that case, they have to put that case up. They cannot send that case out. So I learned real quick when I'm packing, oops, break. Well, as I'm taking that to the back room, I'm putting a couple to the side and taking them out at break and getting drunk. Well, then I got sloppy. Well, of course, because I'm greedy. I'm a poster child for all the 7 deadly sins. Love them back then. And my greed got the best of me. So now I'm like, I might break one bottle. Oh, you see that? There's a leak in there. I'm taking the whole 24 pack out there. And that ended up lasting maybe 7 months. And the downfall of that was the company had a pig picking to where, like, we're all lined. And my grandfather was an Amaranth Shriner, master mason. It meant a lot to him. I don't know what any of it means, but he was a big time chef within that world. And so he was so proud to teach me how to cook a pig. Now I got so about cussed. I'm proud of myself for not. I got so drunk at that pig picking that I threw up on myself, passed out, caught the grill on fire. Grandpa had to come back to wake me up, and of course the next day I get let go. And so that was then my Miller Lite distribution thing. And they ran the tapes back because they were watching me go in there and steal. And then they found out how much beer I was actually stealing. They wanted to press charges. Papa talked them out of it. But fast forward. They just write it off because as long as I'm working, he's just partying a little too hard. That's how my family was. All of them. My daddy got his first DWI when he was 17, and back then though you can make a phone call and you not get charged with it. But so there weren't too many repercussions for that. So now my daughter is knocking on the exit door, about to come in any time. And my dad pulled some strings, and my father and my grandfather worked for AT&T, and he let me use him as a reference to try and get out with the phone company. I'm just about 21 at the time, and the AT&T hiring process is ridiculously long. I think from the first time I did my initial interview, it was 4 or 5 months before I got hired. My daughter was born within that time, and I got the job. Now, it was really cool to work for the phone company. Now, I got my GED, but I was not the sharpest tool in the shed. So when they gave me they give you like a contract quote over the phone of how much you're going to make, and they said something like $888 a week or something like that. And I called my dad, and I'm so proud. I think it was $888 a pay period. Yeah. And I called my dad, I'm so proud, and he's like, well, son, that'd be great, but you realize you just accepted $10.75 an hour to do communications work? I was like, oh, was that bad? Yeah, that was bad. And so I took this job making horrible pay. I get out, and I have to go to school in Nashville, of all places. It was like I just kept getting thrown to the wolves. Nashville is like an alcoholics playground. I'm leaving Podunk, Franklin County to go to one of the prettiest cities I've ever seen. And AT&T's paying me to be there. All I have to do is wake up, go to school during the week, and then for the next 12 weeks I can party all weekend. Well, the problem was I realized I could party all week too. And I managed it. Like, as long as I'm really, like, if they would have had a best prisoner of the month when I was locked up in county jail, I'd have won it every month. Like, as long as you tell me what to do, I'm going to excel. So, I had guys kind of pulling me around and stuff like that. And I made that work. I got through AT&T school by the skin of my teeth and came back. And I made that job work for about a year. Almost a year. Up in 2 weeks, I'm 33 now. I wish Amanda was here. I'd ask her. She keeps up with my age for me. But I'm 33, and I've been in the military. I've worked at AT&T. I've worked for the Miller Lite distribution. I've worked for roofing. I've done all this, and I've never in my life, besides the military, because you're forced to be there, but I've never had a job for a year. And in 2 weeks, I'll have my first job for a year in my whole life straight, employed. And it's an amazing feat. But I'll get back to AT&T. I got to where I was drinking every night. It's just kind of like the lifestyle of a phone man. I'm again fully dependent on liquor. I'm drinking when I wake up. I'm putting Bailey's in my coffee because I think you can't tell because it's just cream. You know, it's just cream and coffee. And I'm lit going on calls and stuff. And I didn't have no money for alcohol. I'd spend it all up one weekend. And so I went into work and I was like, I was out of it. I wasn't drunk, but I was weak, woozy, that kind of thing, withdrawing off the liquor. And I rolled my bucket truck down. I didn't flip it, but I rolled it clean down a hill into a tree in a neighborhood. And some dude, I'm freaking out, like, what am I going to do? My dad's going to kill me. I got a kid. I had just signed an apartment lease for the first time in my life at this point. And some dude comes running out of his house and he's like, I've been telling them to put speed bumps in this neighborhood. I'm so glad you swerved and missed them kids. You'd have killed them. I said, sir, you stay right here. My supervisor's on the way. And that, so I didn't get fired for that, but they knew. Of course they knew what was going on. And I don't know if that dude was a guardian angel or needed the same program I have today. But so they ended up, you know, being sloppy. I made a traffic infraction. And I got fired for that. So, again, I get fired for the same thing. Now, mind you, I'm coming up on 23 years old now. No steady employment, no real place to live. I've lost this apartment now, foreclosed on me. So now I have that on my record and my father's record because he co-signed for it. And my family has completely wiped their heads of me. So, again, my responsible thinking was to go ahead and bring another child into this world at this point. So we're back at my grandma's house. My young daughter, my ex-wife, and I was toxic. Maybe we were both toxic. I ain't here to pull her this step. But we were out there at my grandmama's house, and I found out she was pregnant. My best thinking was, that ain't my kid, and I got to get away from you. Which I did. You know, I really, again, horrible person in my prime, alcoholism. And I left my daughter and my ex-wife pregnant with my mom and my nana, and I went to move in with my uncle. I was very good at playing victim. I mean, I could swindle, talk. You know, I was very good at manipulating people. And I got my uncle to kind of believe, like, if I could just get away from this girl, she was all my problems, my mom, you know, my nana, they're bad people, give me some help. And he had let me move in. But what's different with my uncle and my dad, and my uncle didn't take my BS. Like, he really was a big figure in my life to push me to get things better. And we were sitting out one night by a fire, and we're drinking and talking, and he was like, man, if you were just man enough to get in the military, I'd bet that you'd change your life. I'm like, you don't think I'm man enough to get in the military, Chuck? And he's like, oh, you know. So I made it like my vendetta. Like now my pride's hurting. You know, pride and ego's flared up a little bit. And so I went down to a recruiting station. Recruiter really didn't want to give me the time of day. And he said, look, because I'm pestering him, he said, look, if you go back there and you score such and such on this test, I'll give you a waiver for your GED. And I bombed. I mean, I aced the ASVAB. I don't know how. I guess I'm somewhat educated, according to the United States military, but that makes me worried about who's running the country. But who's behind the gun. But because I could have done anything I wanted to in the United States military. But what did I choose? A horizontal construction engineer. Now that sounds cool, right? What that actually is a glorified construction worker. I got taught to drive 7 different tractors. And I was so upset when I figured that out. But I'm telling everyone, I'm going to build buildings. No, that's vertical engineering, bud. You're going to be going this way. But alcoholic thing for you, right? So, you know, again, I thrive when you're telling me what to do. I'm going to be short. I just told you I'm not going to do a drunk vlog, but there's just so many years of drunk, and I've got so little years of being, but there's a lot in that sober years that's happened. So basically, I thrived in basic training, aced it, thrived in AIT. As soon as I got to my duty station in Colorado Springs, Fort Carson, I got in a reception battalion with some infantry guys that partied how I like to party, and I'd have told you, like, I won't want to party like that no more. I'm working out. I'm looking good. I've got a career ahead of me. I'm going to give my life to this country. Like, I love this. My family's finally proud of me. All these things are going for me. I married my wife. I'm going to build a family, all these good things. And the moment that I got back around that liquor, it was like a light switch. I can't explain it to you. I was drinking straight out the bottle, which is something I never really was about. I was like, I'd mix drinks or I drank a case a night, but I was never really like a straight liquor drinker. And now I'm drinking Fireball like I need it to live. And my military career was very short-lived. I stayed in there 2.5 years. Something happened between me and another person in the military, and I got a traumatic brain injury, and I was medically removed from the military because of that. And that guilt, shame, and remorse, because it was not like it was obviously drinking related. It was but because I got hurt by another service member, they gave me an honorable discharge because of that. But that guilt, shame, and remorse, leaving that place and leaving my friends and all these sergeants and commanders that had high hopes and things I was going to do, it shattered me. At this point, I cared nothing about my kids, me. I was all in. If I wasn't all in before, I was all in now. I came back to Raleigh, North Carolina. Dad was done with it. He didn't want to deal with me. Rightfully so, right? So around this same time period, best thinking, here comes another kid. And I'm a con man, so I conned some dude in Centerville, North Carolina, to let me move into a trailer rent-free. I got a job as a utility locator, and I just proceeded to drink myself into oblivion. And it got to the point to where, kind of the same situation with AT&T, I wasn't drunk, I was woozy from working all night, and I put my car into a tree with my 3 young kids in the back of it. And the state trooper I didn't blow enough to get arrested, but that state trooper pulled me aside and he said, I want you to know that you should be burying your kids. Like, they should not survive this. We hit that tree at 45 miles per hour. The only reason that we were going 45 was I was going 65 and I hit a ravine and it blew the tires off and the frame dragged across the ground before it hit the tree. We should have died. That was still not enough for me to stop. What it did, though, was I went home that night and I called CPS and I asked CPS to please, I need y'all to come remove my kids. Something's going to happen to them. Which was one of the hardest phone calls I ever had to make, but the most rewarding I had to make. It was hindsight. It was the most rewarding thing I've ever done. My kids were removed from my custody. I wish I could tell y'all that this is when the drinking stops. It does not. Because now I can drink and party how I want to drink. I don't have to worry about feeding kids, putting kids to bed, getting kids to school, having a job. I gave it all up. I ended up homeless in Henderson, North Carolina. I'd walk the streets 4 or 5 miles a day, stealing from stores and selling and to buy liquor, to do this, to do that. And I mean, I'm eating out of trash cans at this point, totally destitute human. Like I'm not a human. Like I'm a feral animal at this point in my life. And it stayed that way. It stayed that way for 2.5 years. And the first guy I ever took that drink with, that my mom let move in, that was about to go to college, ended up being the lieutenant over the police department of Henderson. So that same guy I took my first drink with saw me getting in trouble and living the way I was living, and he pulls me to the side and he's like, what's going on, man? Like, this isn't you. And, I give him a spiel, like, I'm a veteran trying to get my life straight. I've been through this. And then, that con man thing. And he saw right through it, thank God. And he told me, he said, if you don't get out of here, I'm going to hunt you like a dog. And he did. He hunted me like a dog. He'd get me here and there for various things. And then finally, one day I just messed up, and he got me. And at this point, I had 7 warrants in 3 counties. And that day, I decided, like, I'm never going to go back to that. So I'm sitting in county jail, and for the first time in my life, I had nowhere else to turn. I had nowhere to, like, escape my thoughts. It was me in a little room and myself, and all the things I'd done up until this point in my life. I'm 28 with nothing to show for it except being a horrible father, a horrible son, just a horrible human at this point in my life. I'd let my alcoholism just rip the first quarter of my life totally away. And it hurt. And I'd made a decision then, and of course, like most good convicts, when we get locked up, I turn to the Bible. And I'm like a jailhouse preacher at this point, and I'm gonna change my life. I'm gonna give it to God. All these good things are gonna happen. And I spent 6 months in county jail to get out to get drunk that very same day. And that's when, like, looking back, I'd recognized the first step before I ever cracked open the book, because I knew at that moment, like, I can't live with this, and I can't keep going on with it either. Like, can't live with it, can't live without it. And there's a rehab up where I'm at called Healing Transitions, and I'd never even heard of this place. Knew nothing about it, and I just Googled free rehab near me, because I had done the VA 9th floor rodeo so many times. I was like a frequent flyer, which is the psych ward at the VA. But and that didn't work. I needed like a long-term treatment program. Even the military. I mean, I'd been sent to bougie rehabs where they're doing acupuncture and they're rubbing your back and woosah, and I mean, I'm drunk on the plane ride back to the base. But this time, I don't know. Like, some people say, like, you have to hit that bottom, and I do believe that, because this time was different. I'd found out Healing Transitions. It's a 9-month program. You're in a homeless shelter with a recovery program attached that's solely based on the 12 steps of AA. And for the first time, I'd been to a couple meetings, but for the first time in my life, I heard what was going on at the meetings. Like, my ears were open. My first speaker meeting was this, probably, I hate that, I never call anyone elderly, but she is an older African-American woman named Diane, who was from Detroit, lived no life like me. But she spoke of the same pain, the same guilt, the same, like, I heard my story when she was up there at the podium. And what I heard at the end, though, is different than my story so far. Is I heard like victory, like she had defeated her alcoholism and turned her life around, and I wanted that. I can remember when I first got here, I couldn't imagine, like, what would it be like to get 90 days? How is that even possible? And I started getting around people. I started getting in rooms with 150 plus years of sobriety, and really listening to these men. So I go through this program at HT. Now I'm sponsoring myself. I have no real sponsor. I'm going to meetings like it's the club, looking for the prettiest girl in the room, that kind of thing. And it kept me away from liquor until I graduated rehab. And then to celebrate graduating rehab, I got drunk with my dad. And it hit me. I knew enough AA at this point, like, whoa, all right, I've got to do something. I've got to get a sponsor. And around that same time, I'd met my fiance, who's my fiance now. And she introduced me to the principals group of Raleigh, which was a lot different from the groups I was going to. I'm not going to talk mess about anybody else's group, but it's awesome, like, coming to y'all's group tonight, having the people out front greeting each other, having that fellowship before the meeting. I heard y'all were having, dinner after, like that. That's the big part of AA that I love, is that fellowship. Seeing that here, the 3 legacies, like, that's very involved in the principals group of Raleigh. And I started hearing, I got good direction for the first time. Maybe I was ready for it. I asked someone to be my sponsor, and I actually worked the steps with them. Actually called him. It was, when he first told me, well, I need you to call me every day until I tell you not to. And I'm like, what do you mean? I don't even call my kids every day. Like, what do you mean, man? And but that was the basis of how now what I base all the rest of my relationships off of. Now I do call my kids every day. Now I do operate differently because of how Randy geared our relationship. And I didn't know that then, but I did it because I was not willing to go back to what my life was. When I got here, I was unemployable. I was not a loyal person, not a kind person, not a trustworthy. I was just everything bad you could imagine. Today, I have more people that count on me than I can count on fingers and toes. My phone rang more times than I can count on the way up here. And I've never had friendship like that. Working the steps with Randy finally allowed me to take a look at myself. I rode that victimhood card my whole life. And when I was finally able to take a step back and take accountability for my actions, it really changed how I operate. Today, like, I'm just not going to be rude to someone to go back later and be like, oh man, you know what, I won't do it good. You know, now in the moment I can catch that. Like steps 6 and 7 are so important for me because I'm constantly trying to change the defects of how things were. I'm losing my train of thought, y'all. Excuse me. So after working the steps with Randy, I got a job with one of the guys in my home group who we rebuilt a house. I did the whole Oxford house thing, and then the house came up and was available in the market. Well, came available to rent, and he gave me the ability to rent that house. So for the first time in my life, I've actually paid my bills for going on 2 years now. I didn't get evicted from this place, not yet, knock on wood. But God willing, my dad's come back into my life and has helped me get back into the telecom world. And I work for one of the big prime contractors for Spectrum out where I'm at. I'm actually their lead technician now. You know, like I'm employable, I'm responsible, like all these things that I never knew how to be through working this program. Sponsorship was huge in that. You know, I meet Randy every Sunday, and that for the first 6 months was the most aggravating thing in my life. Like I could not understand it. Like, why do I have to wake up at 8 o'clock and meet with this man? And you know, now I look forward to it. You know, like I joke with him all the time. I'm like, I'm going to get you a plaque that's the therapist is in to put above your door because, Lord, I bother that man so much. Thank God y'all don't charge for anything here because I'd be in debt. But, you know, I get caught up. Like, it's really hard for me to put into words what this program has given me. I have a relationship with my kids today. Their mother, sadly, never came around, is not in their lives. So I've been able to really be there to. I'm trying to think about how to put this into words. It's hard not to get emotional about this stuff. So my daughter, my oldest is 12 now, and we went to the mountains with my family, and I got invited, and me and my daughter are sitting on this overlook, and we're looking at just the Linville Gorge, beautiful. And my daughter looks at me, and she goes, I'm mad at how you just left and how you treated. You know, and that hurt, but I knew how to respond. Like I knew how to engage with her and talk with her and work through that. And it was such a beautiful, you know, it was like a culminating moment for me. Because the old me, I'd have started crying or patting her on the back. I'm sorry, but, you know, I got to let her be, you know, I got to let her be where she is, you know, and accept me back slowly. I can't expect for anybody, just like my family, I can't destroy my life for 28 years and in 2 years expect the world to be bowed at my feet over a little bit of work, over doing the right thing, you know, over doing what I should have been doing all along. And again, all that comes from the step work. I can't, you know, if you're new here tonight, I plead with you, if you don't have a sponsor, get a sponsor. You know, if you don't have a home group and you like this group, make it your home group. Ask them to make coffee, put up chairs, talk to the old timer in the room. You know, really devote yourself, almost like it's your house. That's why it's called a home group. Make it your home. Work with that sponsor. Don't just shoot the crap with them at dinner after the meeting and then not talk to them until next week. You know, really work with that guy. And then once you work with that guy and you know, you see your life coming together, stick your hand out and help another guy, you know, get here. Because that's where like the things are not, I've never had things, but like helping other men, and that's where it all comes together. I can't tell you what it's like for someone to call me and ask me something, and Frank ain't got no idea what to tell you. But that's when my higher power kicks in. That relationship I've developed has really steered me and helps me steer the guys that I sponsor today. I'm even working now on sobriety has given me enough foundation to start to reopen the case of custody for my kids and get my kids back in my life full time. I've met someone my fiance spoke here not too long ago that I have a stronger bond with than anyone I've ever met, and I know. Well, I don't know. I like to tell you I know, but I'm still navigating how to be a good, partner and how to navigate those character defects and stuff. And I can always go back to my sponsorship family, the spiritual principles, and get through anything I have to navigate. I'm really going to start rambling because I appreciate y'all having me up here. It's always a privilege to speak, and I thank y'all for having me.